Hey, what's up, everyone? If you haven't heard of Sold a Story, check it out. I'm going to leave a link in the description. But it's a podcast that outlines a major problem that most people in this country are not even aware of. The way that most kids have been taught reading over the last several decades, and the way most kids are taught reading today, the most popular way, that doesn't even teach reading. And I've seen examples of this with parents. My mom literally told me that her daughter was reading to her, one of these first reader books. These are these books that they'll say something like "I see a," and then the last word will change along with the picture in the book until it'll say "I see a cat," and there'll be a picture of a cat. On the next page, it'll be a picture of a dog, and it'll say "I see a dog." And this mom was telling me her daughter just reads this and goes, "I see a pet." Doesn't matter what the word actually says. She just says pet and moves on to the next page and goes, "I see a pet," over and over and over again, which is hilarious. It's cute. But I see examples like this all the time. That's not the only one. A lot of the times what I'll see is kids will just memorize, literally just memorize what's on the pages. And if you point out like, hey, okay, but what's this word? They can't tell you. Even if it's one of the words that is like on every single page, they still can't tell you. And this mom was worried, and for a good reason, because your child's not actually learning how to read. And scary to say, this is the most popular, or one of the most popular ways of teaching reading, is to have the child look at the first letter of the word, look at the image, look at where the word is in the sentence, and just sort of guess at what you think the word is. And if you were to try to learn reading this way, you would not get the answer right or the word correct majority of the time. It would be very difficult. It'd be very challenging. Anyway, if your child, by the way, if your child is reading like this, send me a message. There's a link in the description of this video where you can send me a message directly. I would highly encourage that, because we need to fix this. You can fix it, but you need to do it very early on. Otherwise, it can cause much bigger problems later on. But basically, kids are not learning to read, but they're guessing based on pictures. They're not learning to recognize words. They're not even learning to sound it out, which is another problem in itself, which we'll get to in another video. But it's really not supporting children to be literate at all. What happens, for instance, when there's no pictures? How are the kids supposed to read then? I don't know about you, but for myself, I read a lot of books, and a lot of them don't have very descriptive pictures in them. Some of them may have a picture here or there, but sadly, not filled with pictures where I can just guess what is being said. We actually already know what the consequence is, though. And that consequence is really clear. You've heard me talk about this example because it's just so wild, where a 12-year-old who's been taught to read this way reads about World War II, and they read that Germany was invited into Poland, right, in World War II. But in actuality, Germany invaded Poland, right? Now, can you imagine the confusion that child would experience when they're like, wait a minute, why are these guys such bad guys? They were invited into a country and everybody else is mad that they went when they were invited. I don't get it. Could you see how that would be so confusing? It would completely change your understanding of what you just read with just one simple word. Now, imagine the entire text that you're reading is like that. You have no idea why this is such a big deal. Maybe you're misunderstanding the definition of this word, or what this word actually means. You're just reading the wrong words, right? So this is the major issue with the way that kids are being taught reading today. And don't get me started on those other programs where they've got like the teleprompter, or like the computer itself is reading to the child. And so the child just has to press a button and they sort of stare at the screen. They're not really. I talk to a lot of these kids all the time, and they can't read. You put a book in front of them and you just say, okay, read this. They're like, well, usually I have the computer read it to me. Okay, but now I'm asking you to read. And they're like, I can't. I don't know how. They're at a loss, right? And so that is a huge trap. Just think forward just a few years when Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg combine, and Google, and they all combine, and they've got this neural link chip, whatever thing that hacks into your brain. And so you don't need to read anymore, because this voice in your brain will tell you, hey, here's what's going on. Let me read that for you. Let me tell you what the new scoop is, what the news is here, and everything, right? And you just accept it. But you can't check or kind of go like, well, let me look at it for myself. You can't do that. You can't see if it's accurate at all, because you can't read yourself. You have no idea. You can't even do the basics, right? So if somebody says, hey, you have this much in your bank account, you can't go, well, I just spent $5. How is it that I lost $500? You can't do that. You're just like, I can't read. I can't do math. All right, I guess I just accept it, right? So if you want to prevent your child from getting sucked into that trap, which you really should, because otherwise they're just going to be at the whim of whatever that voice in their head is telling them, or whatever the media is telling them, or whatever somebody who can read tells them is the correct answer. They're just going to be at their whim. They're just going to have to listen to them. They're not going to be able to make those decisions on their own, because they honestly can't. And so don't get sucked into that trap. Don't teach your kid to read in this silly way where it's just guessing words. We'll talk about the other ways of reading, of like sounding out words, another time. But don't get sucked into that. We have a much better way of teaching your kid reading, and we've got plenty of kids who are already doing this, and plenty of videos too. From parents who are willing to share their kids reading like amazing. It is so cool when you see this. It's just like mind blowing, especially if you're familiar with kids and kind of the normal development that schools are expecting, and the education system is expecting. This is way ahead of that, and it's not just reading for them. They're going beyond that, where they're doing a lot of other cool stuff that's just fun for kids to do. And you look at them and you're like, wow, that kid is advanced. I know that I wasn't doing these things when I was even that age, and I thought I was pretty smart. My mom thought I was smart, but not this smart. This is next level. And so if you want to see what that looks like, click on the link in the description, send me a message and say, hey, Drake, I want to see those videos of kids. And I'll share with you some of these videos of kids just reading like you wouldn't believe, right? And then if you want to see, okay, yeah, that's really cool. How do I do that? We can talk about that too. All right. See you guys on the next one. Bye.